Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Creating Lasting Change. And I am really excited today to be speaking with Crystal. And we're going to be talking about your inner guidance and your inner goddess and claiming those gifts that are innate to each one of us. I'm really excited to be having this conversation. And as always, every one of my guests, we are talking about how to bring in that lasting change, how to create it in our own lives. So let me do an introduction and then we will get rolling on our interview. Crystal is a spiritual mentor, feminine wisdom teacher, and author. Crystal Cockerham works with empathic women to deepen their relationship with the divine, learn their soul's language, and hone their empathic gifts so that they can create the divinely inspired life they envision, desire, and deserve. Through her offerings in Feminine Wisdom Keepers community, Crystal empowers and supports women in awakening their inner wisdom and embracing their goddess light. Crystal works with women in a sacred circle setting as well as individually, both virtually and in person, through spiritual and transformational retreats, red tents, moon circles, and more. I love that you work with empathic women. Welcome,
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, I'm happy to be here and thank you for being such a gracious host.
Thank you. I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into how we claim our gifts, and especially for empaths. I'm an empath, and it is so many people are so overwhelmed with so much. Although I think once we understand our energy and learn to clear and take care of it daily, that right there is just a big portion of it.
Yeah, so I don't know what you want to know about me. So where do I begin?
Tell us a little bit what you're doing, how you got involved in it, how are you an empath? How did you figure out you were an empath?
Yeah, well, all of that's a really big story. So let me put it into like a little nutshell. I was, I had fallen into basically a wisdom group,
Okay.
and that really started me off. So it's funny because when I go through, like every once in a while, you go through those big clean outs and you find things from way back when. Um, it's funny because when I have done that, I see how many times the divine has gotten in my path to put all of these things that are in my world right now in front of me, and how I started, but just didn't have the right connections or the right mentorship to really follow it. And, life happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't. And so I found essential oils,
Mm.
fell into a wisdom group in coaching, fell into energy work, fell into women's work, really all within a period of 2 years. I mean, it was like once they got me, they threw everything at me and it was like turbo speed, right?
Yep.
And so afterwards, it left me figuring out like, okay, how do I offer all of these services, right? All of these different, I kept compartmentalizing everything. And so it took me a little bit to figure it out. And the way I figured it out was the experience people had of me as doing energy work with them or coaching with them. And that's how I discovered that I was an empath.
Mhm.
And again, once I started like figuring things out and working with, the discernment aspect, which is absolutely huge,
Mm.
um, and keeping myself clear, then it was, little bits of memories from like childhood would creep up. And it was like, oh, I was doing this, and I always thought I was just, that quiet, shy person. Um, when I was little, and I'm not saying I never talked. I got in trouble for talking in class all the time. Um, but like in big groups, I was always more quiet, right? And so that's how I discovered that I was an empath. And then I just kept doing my work, like for me personally, which then, of course, as you know, as a healer yourself, it gives you a larger arsenal of wisdom and tools that you can offer to those who find you and seek you out.
Discernment's a huge thing. I can totally, that is a big piece. We have to understand what's going on around us. We have to understand what's going on within us, which
Yes.
is the perfect segue to claiming our gifts and the inner goddess. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. What exactly does that mean? And I got to tell you, there is an absolute huge piece to energy work. I remember doing my first Reiki class, and it was like the doors blew open, and next thing I knew, it was like, just things falling into place. It was okay, and that was a big part of understanding my own energy and everything else. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's such an interesting. A lot of people that I speak to all say the same thing. So that is just such an interesting, journey for us all.
It really is, especially at the beginning,
Yes.
right? But then when you're working with somebody new, um, it's tapping into all of that experience and wisdom to slow down and ask like more detailed, specific questions and really listen to what they're not saying. But I always explain it this way. Like when you're sitting down with me, it's not just you and me. I mean, you and me might be having a lovely glass of tea together. And the room you might think is empty, but I promise you it is not. Your spiritual allies are right there with you, and they're talking to mine, and they're filtering everything you say. So I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to my guides to put all of the pieces together, so to speak. And when you're working with someone new, whether they've done the work or not, I absolutely count on that in order to guide the person sufficiently and effectively, because of course we want to fix them, right? But we can't fix them. We just have to lead the way and open up the doors and open up the energy and put all of the things in front of them for them to choose and to help pace them in a healthy way.
Yeah. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
I like how you say slow down, because
Mhm.
too many people are running. They don't slow down to listen to themselves, let alone anybody else.
Right.
We live in a society where it's like you have to go, 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 go. It's the next thing, it's the next thing, it's the next thing. And it tends to lead to burnout, which is very important not to go there. Do the best you can not to end up in any type of burnout. So I like how you bring in your guides, the individual's guides, because we do have so much around us that is
Mm.
available to us if we open up to it. And now, is this part of what you would say embracing the inner goddess?
Yes, because well, for one, it's the working on strengthening your intuition. Whether you are one who hears or sees or feels, whatever that is, you're opening up and you're paying attention. And it's only through paying attention and working with it that you begin to trust it. Right? So intuitive gifts and empathic gifts absolutely do belong to the divine feminine, which I lovingly refer to as our inner goddess, right? And the divine feminine is an energy in which every human walking the planet has. right? No matter what your gender is, we all have that energy within us, and we all have the sacred masculine energy within us, because that's what they are. They're energies and frequencies. So the catechist, it's like a staff with wings, and it looks like there's serpents
Yes.
winding around it. Think of that as your spine and your chakra centers. And every time they come through and they cross over each other, that's the masculine and feminine energies, consummating and uniting, right? They're inciting action and life in you all the way up. And then the wings, that's your connection to the divine. So that is how I see that, and how I really, I mean, like, I can't like put it into a seed any more than that, because there's so much to it, and we could talk for days on it. But
Yeah.
if you think of your inner goddess and the divine feminine energy, it's okay, your inner goddess, your higher self, right? It's your spiritual self. It's what connects your physical being to your soul. That's how I relate to it. And so the divine feminine energy shows up all around, outside and inside of us, as a container. And if you think of it as the woman's physical womb space, when a baby is in there, it expands and it contracts. So when you're creating a sacred container, such as a circle, when you're doing your sacred work, or a circle, like a circle of women, and you are doing a teaching, or there's some sacred sharing happening, that is the feminine container, and it expands and contracts to fit the energy that shows up, that it needs to hold
Yeah.
and protect.
I like how you describe with the serpents and the embracing of both energies, because I don't think so many people do. We do have the masculine, we do have the feminine, and it's about joining them in a way that is highest and best for us. You can't do one without the other. They're both within us, and it's about trusting the intuitive side as well as taking the action side. Both of those are just as important. I don't think a lot of people get into that as much, but the embracing that feminine, that intuitive side, the empathic side, do you have ways to share with people how to do that?
Yes. So it goes through, and there never is the perfect world. So word, right? So I'm just going to say it's always serendipitous, because otherwise you're going to hear people say it's always weird, or it's always funny, but it's not funny or weird. It's always divine timing. How no matter what woman you have in front of you, and they're drawn to learning about the divine feminine mysteries, and they want to awaken that aspect of themselves up, there's always a thread in common that has to do with wounding. And you can trace it back through both the mother and the father line, but it always comes down to when the divine feminine became not so celebrated in the world as it used to be, because at the dawning of time, she always was celebrated, right? And it was this dance of both, and it was, the incoming of, I'm going to say, the standardization of civilization through religion and power, which really took that away, because they didn't have the capabilities that we have now today to be able to understand that they too had access to those gifts, that they are gifts, and they're not just for certain people, and they weren't designated just for women, but they seem to be more potent in women, because we have that divine access of creating and birthing life into the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. because there is always that open channel that you
Mhm.
have that is being connected to that on several different levels, you know, mental, physical, emotional, you know, that channel is open. Now, I'm trying to get this question, so bear with me. I'm really curious about ways in which we can all embrace and then claim our gifts, because I'm sure you believe every single one of us have gifts. Every single
Mhm.
one of us is special. It is just our patterns and beliefs that have gotten us pulled further away from that.
E- Even when you feel like you aren't connected, there's just all that junk in the way of what you just said, patterns and beliefs, and in moments of when we had given our power up or it had been taken away from us and we hadn't healed it, right? We are always all connected. We just don't always feel or trust that connection
Mm,
because of the conditioning and the beliefs. So, you know, I like to think of it, everything is round, right? Because if you try to put things in a box, then you get things that get stuck in the corners. Those corners, they get in the way. Ugh, don't like corners, right? That's where all the spider webs happen, all that good stuff. But if you think of everything as a circle, there are many front doors. There's not just one. There's not
mm,
just a front and a back. Any one could be considered a front door. So someone could be stepping into this through the guise of, yeah, I know I have intuition, but how do I learn to trust it? And they get into it in that way. And then the world of the divine feminine and all of these sacred energies open up for them. Right. So there's that door that you can go through. There could be the woman or person who is just sick and tired of being sick and tired and feeling like she's being kicked when she's down over and over and over and over again. And she goes through the process of the spiritual healing. And then again, all of the doors open up. And then there are the people who have done a little bit of work or they know about the work but haven't done the work, but they're really drawn to what are these feminine mysteries? And for me, it it all works together synergistically because anytime you work with any one of those things, they all show up. It's
mm,
never not that way. They all show up. Um, and for me, the sweet spot is really getting into the women's rites of passage. And I like to teach through archaeological and historical evidence. You know, it's not something that I'm making up. This all exists and it's been proven, through time. And then you do get into some of the etheric teachings where and that's where the spiritual aspect comes in. You have to trust what comes through for you, and that's where that trust of claiming those gifts come in. Like if it scares you a little bit and you're like but excited at the same time, then yes, step forward. That's a trusting. And if there's something is hitting you like a wall, it's like, okay, that's not my soul's experience, but there's a nugget of something in there. Tug on that thread and see where that leads you. So it really is a big trust walk, and it's very important to make sure that you're partnering with a teacher or a mentor who you can trust, who you resonate with,
yeah,
where you feel like there's a good synergy and right away they get you and they're making sense.
yeah.
Um,
Very important. Very important. Yes.
yeah, so I feel like those are excellent ways of beginning.
And I absolutely agree with you, because when I hear my intuition, when I follow my intuition, there is a physical peace within me, knowing that I'm on the right path. And yes, there is absolutely a piece of, yes, it scares you, but you're excited by it.
Mhm.
Scares you, but you, and it's interesting because I used to hear that, all the time. And I'm like, these people are talking crap. And, and what happens is, as with everybody, when you finally hit that, then you understand that.
Mhm.
There's no amount of somebody saying to you, when you get there, when you are there, you will absolutely understand that. You will, because otherwise you're like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And that's okay. I want people to understand that's okay. But when it's there, you're going to feel that excitement, and you're going to feel scared, and you're also going to feel a level of peace, whether it makes sense or not. It's that level of peace, and that's the direction that you're going down.
Yeah, there's something affirming where, there's the different kinds of fears. There's the fear of, oh, this doesn't feel good. Like, in my gut, I know this is good. I should not walk down that dark alley right now. Like, that is not wise. I am not going to do it. But then there's well, I've been practicing for this. I can do this, right? And you push through it. When you break down those moments in your life, and everybody has those scary good and the scary, like, I know I shouldn't, like, my angels are working overtime to keep me from doing this kind of thing. Like, those are two very different types of fear.
Absolutely. And I actually can totally agree, because there was many years ago, I was supposed to go in for a procedure. And that morning, it was like they just knocked me down, and they were like, no, 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 no. And I finally just said, okay, I'm not going to do it. But it was an internal battle with my mind saying, I got to do this, I got to do this, and my body and everything else that was saying, absolutely not. And as soon as I said no, the peace came. But there is that level of fear, and being guided to absolutely not go down that dark alley, not do this procedure, not take that job, or not do that next step, because that is not good for you whatsoever. And
Right.
instead of trying to be logical, because, and I would love for you to respond to this, how many of us try to explain it away by being logical?
I know. There's a Native American proverb. I'm so glad that you brought this up. I like using this. There's a Native American proverb that says the longest journey anyone will ever take is from their head to their heart.
Uh,
And it's because we know it in our heart. We're not supposed to know it up here because this gets in the way, right? Think this is like the element of air. This is love and spirit, right? So think of air. Perfect example right now. The air quality outside is terrible. It's so thick you could literally cut it with a butter knife.
yes.
Like, you walk out and you're like, oh my God, I can't breathe. And so think about that as being your beliefs, the conditioning, your faith. I like to refer to it as your faithful general. That piece of you that's there to protect you at all costs, even if it's from something good, just because that something is different and is not known, right? So it's going to put all kinds of stuff in the air for you to clear. And
Yeah.
so, for me, it's like, drop into your heart and feel it, and there's an opening. So I'm curious, like, for me, when there's a big affirmation, a big affirming, so to speak, of divine intervention, and that I'm absolutely on the right path, I refer to it as angel bumps. That some people refer to it as soul bumps, but it's really not like the goosebumps when you're cold, but it's similar, right? Because when you're cold, it's like in your skin, but this is like you just up and down your spine, and you're just flooded with this cold energy, but just where it's almost not touching you.
Yes. Yes. you feel it. You do, for me, I do get goosebumps, but it's like quick. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, whereas you're cold, they're there.
Right.
But it's like this, it's like from head to toe, goosebumps, but it's like this electrical energy running through you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yes, absolutely. And too many of us get stuck in our head. I know even when I decide, like I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. Occasionally up here will say, but, 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 and I'm like, nope, nope, nope. So it's about truly trusting yourself, and that for somebody who's never really trusted themselves.
Terrifying. Absolutely.
Mhm. What what advice do you have for somebody like that? Because I know when I was there, I mean, it's like you feel like you're jumping off a ledge and there's no place you're just gonna squash.
Yeah. So it's when you catch yourself in a loop. Um, Tapping is one good thing that
Mm,
you can do. And sometimes I forget like how simple it is. So there's two tappings I kind of want to go through, because if somebody's really caught in that, they could be panicking. I would just right there, right on the thymus, and tap into my breath in my belly, not up here because it would keep me panicked, right? And if you're not panicked and you're caught in the loop, then you're tapping up here, and then coming down here. And if you think of it in a way of you're literally disrupting the pattern. But when you pair that with your breath and you close your eyes and you put your hands over your heart when you're done, you know what's true, and you can get yourself out of that loop. Um, and so there's something I often refer to as a power speak. I know that you do the affirmations and you do the subliminal affirmations, which I find insanely I'm very curious about, because I've never tried them subliminally before. Um, but there's something about it. It's like when you find that voice and you speak up, and it's like you know, that first time you speak up and stand up to somebody and you kind of get a little teary, but maybe you're crying, maybe you're not, but then you get a little shaky, then
mm,
you know you're doing it, right? You're disrupting the pattern, you're eradicating the pattern. I'm not saying the pattern's not going to show up again, but the next time it comes up, you're going to recognize it quicker, you're going to get out of it quicker, and it's not going to be so physically jarring to take hold of it.
mm. And I just want to state, for me, I had no idea about tapping years ago, right? I had no idea. But when I caught myself there, I would just start tapping, like this whole area. I would just start tapping and it would calm me down. And I had no, it was like an intuitive, innate thing
Mm-hmm.
that when I was losing my mind, whether it was anxiety or my overthinking or whatever, I would just, and interestingly enough, every now and again, don't realize I've gotten into that loop, like I'm not mindful, I
Mm-hmm.
start tapping. And as soon as I start tapping, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Where is your brain? You know? And it brings me back present really fast because again, intuitively, my body, my soul is saying, all right, let's calm down, bring this down. And I find those are the times where I'm totally mindless, just
Mm-hmm.
going about my day, or something's on my mind that I'm creating a story about it instead of looking at it in a way of how can I change this? What needs to be seen? So I love that you brought that up because I think tapping in the middle of it and
Mm-hmm.
breathing through it is such a powerful tool.
It is. And you can do it when you're driving down the road. You can do it in the bathroom. You can do it in a crowd of people. Nobody knows what you're doing, except for other tappers. They're going to know what you're doing. But you know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're going, And I'm not making fun of anybody doing that, because that is that's a powerful act in doing it. But I'm not saying stop on the side of the road and go, oh, you can if you want. But, if you're at a stop sign and you're like, okay, I'm doing this. Because we're human, right? We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Those moments are going to come up. And when they do surface, there's one question I ask, especially if it comes up repeatedly, maybe not in a succession, but often, right? I say, okay, you're bringing this forward. Clearly, there's something here for me that I'm not seeing. Please show me so that I can move through this. Because as you mentioned earlier on when we started talking, we have this big spiritual team of allies, and they're always around us, but they can't intervene unless we ask them to, right? So they could be helping the stuff come up, just like giving us messages constantly. But if we don't trust, if we don't ask, they can only do so much in aiding us.
And there is so much power in questions and in asking.
Yes.
I constantly say it. There is so much power in questions. When I find something, I'm like, well, what do I have to do here? What do I have to change? What do I have to see? What is my next best step? And I've also realized changing the quality of the questions. Pull away from why me. Why questions I tend to put on the side, unless of course it's why does the universe create black holes? The why questions, if they bring you down into victimhood, are not the types of questions you want to ask. The types of questions is, what do I have to see? What do I have to change? What is my next step? What do I have to see here? Why is this coming up for me to see, and how can I change it?
What part of me is asking for the healing and for somebody to observe her in a way that couldn't have happened at the time?
Yes. So important to ask those questions. Asking for help, asking for questions, because we are here having we are spiritual beings having this human experience, and we get so caught up in growing up. I was told, don't ever ask for help. Don't ever let anybody know there's a problem, except that's how we start to heal and learn more about ourselves, is when we ask for help and when we admit and say, I don't know what's going on here. Can somebody help me? Because don't. Years ago.
And I would say, don't just ask anyone.
Yes.
Everybody, and if you have no one, like reach out to one of us, right? But everybody has those people who we try to share something with, and they tend to keep us in it instead of helping us move through it, right? Those aren't the people to help you through this. Yeah. Right? Not that they don't love you, they just don't know how. They don't know what they don't know. Right? We all have people like that in our lives. But I really hope that everybody is blessed with at least one person who really truly listens. And if anything else, they just help you feel better about yourself, right? That's the first step, is being heard, and in a sacred way. And there's magic in that, holding space for somebody. I mean, that is the number one most powerful thing I can do for any client, is to hold that space and to listen, because there's a part of them that really needs to be heard, who has not ever been heard before, right? And I mean, I just can't stress the importance of that enough, because unfortunately, like, I've come across so many people where they've talked to other people, or maybe they've gone and seen an energy healer, and they do this, tell them this, and you're released into the world. No, that energy healing session is just the beginning.
Yes.
You can't leave your people hanging. And if you do too much, like there can be like this spiritual shock that happens, right? So it's really important and imperative, I feel, to really have somebody who knows how to walk somebody through the process in a safe and sacred way.
Yes. And unfortunately, I'm sure some of us have had those people where they've kind of given us that shock. And one of the things that's really worked for me is when years ago I was having a terrible time and my gifts were out of control. I didn't even know what was going on. I didn't even realize they were growing. And I
Mhm.
remember one day going, all right, this is not me. I can't stomach looking at myself in the mirror anymore. Please help me to figure out what is going on. Please send me the people to help me handle this. And I remember doing all of these questions and requests that morning. And that afternoon, I had 3 people reach out to me. I have to talk to you. Please call me. Somebody else got me. And all of them had very similar messages to me. So if you are literally between a rock and a hard place, and ask the universe to send those people to you, because they will guide you to the direction that you need to go. And
And keep everything wide open. Don't close any doors,
Mhm.
right? It could be something you see, hear, feel, could come to you in your dream time. Some people are very, very like their dream vision track and sensory aspect of their intuition is their dominant intuitive part. So really be open to that. I mean, if you're like the same commercial comes on the radio and 3 times in a day, or you keep hearing it every day, there's something in that commercial for you. Same with a song, same with, numbers, right? Like an animal, like those messages come to you in so many ways. It's our job to pay attention and really trusting, but you can't do that without exploring and taking steps.
Mhm. And answers can come through conversations like this.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
100%. Absolutely. Because I remember a few weeks ago asking a question, and I'm like, well, I didn't get the answer. I didn't get an answer. I didn't get a response. And I remember I was in the shower, because me and water, I don't know what it is. I'm very open to water. And it was, you did. And I'm like, what? And then I had to stop and think. The answer came through a friend of mine. I went, oh, oh. So being open, not closing the doors, allowing, putting the judgment of how we feel it should be, or the expectation of how we should, put that away,
Mhm.
and just be aware and mindful of the conversations and the signs that you see. I love that you said that, because so many people, and it's interesting because someone's like, I keep seeing this sign. I'm like, do the research. What does that mean? There's a
Mhm.
message here for you. Oh,
Yes. Yeah. And when you're doing the research, I mean, this is key. Like it isn't so much what the research says, it's what pops up for you while you're reading it. It's what it triggers for you, right? So yeah, for sure. And yes, there is something about water. I have a waterproof notepad and pencil in my shower. And I had to get that when my oldest daughter moved out, because she just happened to be always home. So I'd always be going, Morgan. And she'd be like, what? Like, blah, 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 blah. And she'd be like texting me my message, because I would just like come flooding through. And so then I learned about the waterproof notepad, and it's
hmm. Yes, I got one too, because I would call my husband in all the time. He's like, oh no, we need to fix this. So it's right by the shower door. So it's there if I need to grab it and start writing something. So for me, it's there is definitely something about water as well. It's like opening up the channel in a way that I'm not, and I'm so engrossed in like washing my hair or something else, and it's like boom, it just comes right through.
Well, yeah. So if you think about it, in the Dark Ages and medieval times, like women, they would often have these intuitive visions when they were doing something like spinning yarn or embroidering, because it would become so automatic, they wouldn't have to think about what they were doing. And I mean, hello, once you reach about, 7, 8 years old, hopefully earlier, but let's just say 7, 8 years old, showering is like automatic, right? It's muscle memory. So your brain's out of it and it opens you up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. It is about that time. So please share with everybody where they can reach you at the best way.
Okay. Um, I would say my website, crystalcockerham.com, crystalcockerham.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I had a great conversation with you.
Well,
And
thank you as ever. Yes, totally enjoyed it and it flew by.
yes, it did. All right, everybody, have a lovely rest of your day, and we will see you next week for another episode of Creating Lasting Change. And thank you again, Crystal.
Thank you for having me. Bye, everybody.
Bye.